Hi, this is Justin Leet, and today I want to rant about Ontario Regulation 274 under the Education Act, which governs the hiring practices for teachers in Ontario. This regulation outlines how a teacher is ranked within the board based upon their seniority. In order to be eligible for interviews with to get onto the LTO list, for example, an occasional teacher would have to meet a couple of requirements. First, they must have been on board supply list for at least 10 months, in which time they must have accumulated at least 20 full days of teaching that are no older than 5 years based on the date of application. After that, there's then a process just to get a long-term assignment where you must, again, rank within the 5 highest ranking seniority long-term occasional teachers on the long-term occasional list, as well as meeting all requirements for eligibility, etc. Finally, you've got a long-term occasional position, and you're ready to become a full-time teacher. But in order to do that, you must then have completed an LTO position in that school board that lasted at least for 4 months. And again, you must be within the top 5 highest ranking or most senior people in that have applied for that position. In a lot of ways, I think that this regulation has a lot of merits. First and foremost, I think it's important because it removes the chance of principals playing favorites or cases of nepotism in principals or board members who do the hiring of teachers. Of course, everybody's trying to get a job, and I think that it's really important for the playing field to be equal. And of course, if I was in that position, a teacher that's worked my dues and been in the board for numerous years at this point, of course I would want to know that my seniority would count for something, and that I would, be entitled at least to an interview, and be eligible for a full-time position that I was applying for. However, I also find this regulation incredibly frustrating as a new teacher trying to get into the profession. First of all, there's a major problem when it comes to seniority in that it's a board-by-board basis. If I started out in one board and switched to another board, I would lose all seniority, making it a lot more difficult for me to be able to apply for LTO or permanent positions. Furthermore, it's very frustrating as a new teacher to get my career going. I have to put in a lot of work as a new teacher just beginning in this profession to try to make sure that I become the most senior. This means that while the requirement for eligibility only requires that I have been on this fly list for 10 months and taught in schools for 20 days and have an LTO position of 4 months, the reality of the situation is that I'm going to actually be doing those jobs for a lot longer than the minimum, just so that I can work up the seniority necessary for more permanent positions. Another frustrating position for teachers that have been that do have accumulated the seniority is that even if they are one of the top 5 most senior, it does not necessarily guarantee them the position. So, as one of the top 5 most senior teachers applying for the list, they're guaranteed an interview, the 5 most senior people applying for the position, they're guaranteed an interview, but they could continually be passed over for number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 on the list, and then the next round they could be passed over again, next round they could be passed over again, etc., etc., until they went through the entire list, hypothetically, and they could still not have a job. At that point, I would question whether or not there might be a problem with that teacher, but that might be a whole other rant. I think the biggest issue that I have with this regulation is that it ultimately prevents teachers that are more qualified from getting a position. I think seniority is probably a very lousy way ultimately to hire a teacher. I know that as a member of OTC and of my federation, I would want to make sure that my profession is secure with teachers that are highly knowledgeable and are very well equipped to handle their job. Hiring just based on the most senior applicants does not necessarily guarantee that. I think that there should be another stipulation in place that really guarantees that the most qualified person, not necessarily the most senior person, gets that position. Furthermore, I think that there's a lot of merit being said to the fact that teachers, new teachers, fresh from faculties of education, are oftentimes way more qualified to teach than teachers with years and years and years of experience. Many times, these teachers that have lots of experience are unwilling to change, are stuck in their old traditions of teaching, and whereas newly trained teachers, fresh from faculties, have expertise that these older teachers don't have the experience or opportunity to have had. Perhaps there might be some way that a teacher that is fresh from a faculty of education could compete with a teacher with years of experience for the same position and have an equal chance. I think that is what is necessary in order to protect all teachers fairly, make sure that the profession is being taken care of, and ultimately ensure that the best teacher is in the role that they need to be in. Thank you.